Hey everyone, Darren here with Push. Today I'm going to do a quick video on how to install your new 11.6 on your Revel Rail or Rascal. It's the same procedure on both bikes. Today I've got the rail in front of me. I'm going to start with a couple of 4mm hex keys. The front shock mount is where I'm going to start, or the frame mount. Put the two hex keys in and break that loose. This uses a bolt and axle system, which is pretty slick. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove the bolt, but leave the through axle in place. Next, I'm going to grab my 8mm hex key and insert that into the rear bolt underneath the link. I'm going to loosen that up. Having the axle pin still installed just makes it a little bit easier to stabilize to get the rear out. I'm also going to reach around and just kind of grab the rear wheel and take some weight off of it. That'll make it easier to get this rear bolt out. Once that's loosened up, again, just kind of using the rear wheel to take weight off of it. Gently set the rear down as you pull the rear bolt out. Set that aside. Now I can use my 4mm hex key to insert into the axle, just kind of help push it out. When that axle comes out, now the shock comes out completely. Set this aside. Sell it on eBay, Craigslist, whatever. Now we've got our new 11.6. We're going to kind of reverse that process. So I'm going to guide the shaft mount end into the link and get the front mount in place. Insert the axle into the front to stabilize the front of the shock. Now I'm going to grab my 8mm hex and the rear bolt. Again, lifting up on the rear wheel to kind of help guide that rear mount in. Get it started with my fingers. And then again, keeping some weight off the rear wheel, just kind of lifting it out, will help guide in that rear bolt. Now, I'm going to get that bolt to where it's about 80% of the way in. And then I'm going to take my front mount bolt and thread that into the axle. Kind of get that started. So I've got my front axle and bolt in. I've got my rear bolt in. I don't want to tighten it down with the bike off of the ground. So the shock will settle. So right now you can see, and even if you put it on the ground, you hear a lot of clicking. We want to always install rear shocks with the bike on the ground, with it weighted, so that the slop is taking out of all the bolts and everything. If you were to tighten it down in this position, the first time you ride it off a curb or something like that, you hear some cracking and some popping. It doesn't do any damage. It just is the shock settling into the system. So next we're going to take this thing out of the stand and do the final tightening on the ground. Okay, so now with the bike on the ground, you can see what if I pick up and down, everything feels really loose. So when the bike is unweighted, the slop is the largest. If you weight it, it just takes all that slop out of the system. So with it on the ground, I'm going to take my two 4mm hex keys. I'm going to tighten down that front shock mount bolt. Next, I'm going to take my 8mm hex key. And again, get that rear mount good and tight. And we're ready to go. You will notice on this bike, because we do use the spherical mount front, that the shock will rock back and forth by hand. That's completely normal, not something that you're going to see on the trail. But now you're ready to rip.